The Honourable Member for Hiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I direct my series of questions without notice to the Honourable Minister for Commerce and Industry. I ask that the Minister for Finance, Implementation and Planning and the Minister for State Enterprise take note of this series of questions, particularly as they relate to landowner benefit sharing structures. The issues I raise are historical in nature, and through the Marape Rosso government, Mr. Speaker, we have the opportunity to right the wrongs of the past because previous governments have been unable to do so. Mr. Speaker, as most of us are aware, the water supply and power supply of Port Moresby comes from Central Province, specifically the Koyaris area and Hiri Koyari electorate. This morning, in fact, the water we drank for tea and the shower that we had was sourced from that particular water source. This infrastructure was built well before many in this House were born, with the Hiri Hon Dam built in 1962. This was prior to there being any real consideration for rights and privileges of landowners in project area sites.
Honourable Member, may I interrupt you? Sorry, I did not hear the Minister you were asking a question to, so can you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is directed at the Minister for Commerce and Industry.
Commerce Industry, go ahead.
So this was before the framework that PNG LNG project was subjected to, way before the mining sector was brought on. So, Mr. Speaker, water is a source, as is oil, is a resource as is oil and gas and minerals that have value to the end user. But water is even better in the long term because this water comes from Hiri Koyari, is a renewable resource and has tremendous importance for the well-being of our people and the development of our national economy. In fact, graded as world-class standards. There are 4 components to the extraction and use of this resource that cover 4 land codes that are as follows. The Hogeri Development Company for inland water sources from Hogeri area, otherwise in the context of PNG LNG would be the wellhead. The Hiri Hon Development Company for the catchment of the Hiri Hon Dam, the Central Sageri Holdings Limited for riverine area in Central Sageri, which the pipeline traverses and the resource is pushed to a turbine, where the 4th landowner group is domiciled, which is the Rona Development Company, which houses the the turbine that powers the power and passes the water right down to Mount Eriyama. Over many years, a range of MOUs, agreements, and NEC decisions have sought to address concerns and grievances, and of course, stoppages and strikes. And to have them properly recognized for the economic contribution they make with their resources and land through Edaranu and Water PNG. In 2013, the NEC made a decision number 356 of 2013, and it did a number of things. But firstly, it established a ministerial committee to be chaired by the Minister for Commerce, Trade and Industry, and number 2, endorsed and approved the proposed Sustainable Development Benefit Package for Koyari landowners that would be executed by the ministerial committee. Some payments have been done. There were 20 million kina approved, and 2 lots of payments were done. In 2015, a sum of 5 million kina was paid to Sitco, otherwise Hiri Hon Development Company Limited. And in 2021, Rona Development Company received 5 million kina. Overall thought was that what has transpired from the NEC decision have been limited and inconsistent with Band-Aid actions. The ministerial committee never really advanced, and the Sustainable Development Benefit Package has not materialized. Mr. Speaker, these landowners do not ask for an ad hoc solution. They want legislated security that is developed through reforms that recognize the economic contribution these lands make to the nation's capital and the economy of this country. As such, Mr. Speaker, I raise a series of questions to the Minister on behalf of the landowners in my district of Hiri Koyari. And in doing so, if I may, I recognize that this is an issue from well before the appointment of Honourable Minister of Commerce and before his time. And I seek the good Minister's consideration on this issue, as I know he is a man that wants to see clarity in policy. Similarly, while this is an issue relating to finance, making payment under the commitments of the previous executive government, this is well before Honourable Remo Paita's time, and his stewardship of his department has been outstanding. Also, there are matters relating to state-owned
Honorable
utilities
members, I'll interrupt you. I would like you to make your statement short and get to your question.
Thank you kindly. So the question, Mr. Speaker, I say, number one, when will the government release the 5 billion kina that is outstanding for each of the remaining landowner groups? That is 5 billion kina for Hogeri and 5 million kina for Central Sogeri. And will the minister convene a meeting of the designated ministerial committee to review the execution of the Sustainable Development Package for Koyari landowners? And in reconvening this ministerial committee, will the minister consider reforms to the Sustainable Development Package that will contemplate a proposal for a long-term benefit sharing structure and two, equity and royalty plus infrastructure funds for roads, power and water for these very people who actually deliver the water that is firing up this country and the heart of this nation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Commerce.
For giving me this opportunity to respond to the questions without notice raised by the good member for Koyari Hiri. Firstly, let me thank the people of Koyari Hiri for giving our good member inside of this Planupla electorate, along representing all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me clear some issues or questions raised by a good member for Hiri Koyari. I totally agree with a good member for many years that development of Shirinomu Dam to supply water and electricity generations, various MOUs, agreements, and NEC decisions were made by the national government, and millions of kina allocated to address grievances of the Koyari people or Koyari water resource landowners. However, there is no proper records and monitoring due to the lack of proper coordination. Mr. Speaker, the government through NEC decision number 356 of 2013 endorsed the Sustainable Development and Benefits package for the Koyari resource landowners, including inland, catchment, and lower Koyaris, and established the ministerial committee chaired by the Minister of Commerce and Industry to oversee the implementation of those funds. Mr. Speaker, this matter can be addressed administratively by my department and Department of Treasury in assisting the ministerial committee to ensure that all documentations are in order to make a business case and funds are made available through Koyari Sustainable Development and Benefit Plans. Mr. Speaker, the question in line with the agreements reached amongst the Koyari water resource landowners that are organized into 4 landowner groups and their landowner umbrella companies. Number 1, inland water source, which is within the Hogeri area or Hogeri Development Company. Number 2, catchment area, Shirinomu Dam, which is Shirinomu Dam Corporation Company, Riverine area or Sogeri Central, Central Sogeri Holdings Limited, and power and water installation, which is the Rona Development Company. Those are the 4 landowner companies that only managing this funding were allocated to Koyari landowners. Mr. Speaker, the Sustainable Development and Benefits Package is the government's intervention program in response to Koyari grievances by making funds available to address their development needs as identified by them, such as access to basic infrastructure, health, education, and promote SMEs to start, develop, and graduate small to medium business, which can create employment and income and opportunities for the Koyari people. Mr. Speaker, the question of when should the money be released, the answer is as long as Finance and Treasury allocate funds for the Koyari Sustainable Development and Benefit Package as an ongoing fund to ensure that all the Koyari water resource landowners are assisted to establish and undertake sustainable development projects or programs within the resource area. Mr. Speaker, since SIDCO or Sirunumu Dam, Sirunumu Corporation and Roadco, Rona Corporation received their share of 5 million each, Hogeri Development Company Limited and Central Sogeri Holdings Limited, as according to their agreements, will be considered for financial assistance as funds are confirmed to be available. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, the Ministerial Committee will ensure that there is a proper mechanism for monitoring and evaluation of these funds to ensure it is having positive impact on the livelihoods of the impacted resource owners of Koyari. Therefore, more funds will be required for the Ministerial Committee to monitor those or progress the use of those funds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.